This is a new tuner screen that I made without even writing a line of code. All I did was tell Claude Code what I wanted, and in a few minutes I had a totally working tuner, brand new tuner screen for the Qtune. Today I'm announcing the Qtune SDK, and by the end of this video, you're going to know how you can build one of these tuner screens yourself and even a standby screen, and even if you've never written a line of code. So follow along and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it. Last year my friend Ryan and I released the Qtune for the first time as a DIY pedal kit. And we still offer that kit. It's a through-hole component kit. You get a board, you get the screen, the enclosure, everything you need to put it all together. It takes about 2 hours, and that's why we came out with the new solderless kit, which takes only about 15 to 30 minutes, and you don't even need to know how to solder. So if you go to our website, q-tune.com, you can see that we've got a pre-order. Now those are probably going to start shipping next week. And it only takes you 15 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes if you've never assembled one of these and you've got a working Qtune. Or if you scroll down and you still want to solder resistors and capacitors and all the good fun stuff, you can still get that by ordering a solder kit, the through-hole kit. So what's new that we're announcing now is this SDK, and I'll put a link to all of this stuff in the description so it's easy for you to get to. But out on GitHub, there's a Qtune SDK repository, and if you have coded before, you'll know exactly how to clone this repository onto your own computer. If you've never coded before, what you'll want to do is click this tags, then you'll click on releases, and you're going to want version 1.0.2, or if by the time you watch this video, grab the very latest one, scroll down until you see the zip file, and that's what you're going to want to download. Now if you're not familiar with coding, most projects have a README file, and so the first thing you want to do after you've unzipped this is to open the README file, and you can glance through it. We're going to skim a whole bunch of this because I'll leave that as a homework assignment for you. But there's a few different ways you can build a plugin, a tuner screen or a standby screen, which I'm calling a plugin. And the first one is if you don't know how to code at all. The second way is if you want to write all the C++ yourself, or if you want to use a coding agent like Claude Code, which is actually what we're going to be doing tonight. So there's a couple things that you're going to need to install. The first would be your AI agent like Claude Code. So if you don't have that downloaded, go ahead and use Codex or OpenAI or whatever your favorite AI coding platform is. The other thing you'll need is Docker. And Docker is something that allows it so you can run the exact same development environment that I'm running. So scroll down, I'll put the link in the description for this, but if you're running on Mac, get Docker Desktop for Mac. If you're running on Windows, get Docker Desktop for Windows. And get that all installed, and then pause the video, go get that installed, and you can follow along as we're doing this. Now if we come back to the README file, you scroll down and the getting started is the no code walkthrough. So basically Claude Code and Docker. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So getting started, I just talked about the things that you'll need, and it tells you kind of the things that you're going to need to do. And rather than read through all of this, we're just going to jump right in. So once you have Claude Code installed, you're going to open a terminal or a shell, PowerShell for Windows. And inside of the Qtune SDK directory, you're going to launch Claude. So when you're building something with AI, the more precise you can be, usually that's a better way to go about it. Because when you don't give instructions or you don't give the details, that's where AI is going to have to make things up. And it's going to be optimistic and guess what it is that you want. I like to be goal-oriented and describe what it is, the outcomes that I want, and it will build based on that specification that I give it. So rather than me explaining or typing this all out, I've prepared something. So this is a fairly well-known tuner. I'm in no way sponsored or affiliated or whatever with this brand or tuner, but I'm going to drag that image in there. And then I've also got, I typed up my instructions and my prompt for AI. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there, and I'm just going to switch this over to auto mode. Now auto mode is not going to stop. It's usually not going to stop. It's going to assume that you've given it everything it needs to know, and it's not going to interrupt, and it's just going to keep going. But I've built into my instructions that it needs to do this in a couple phases. So this will end up stopping, but basically I'm telling it, build me a tuner called Dead Center and make it all these things. Draw out, I told it a layout to build. I want the old seven segment LCD type of note, that type of thing. I've given it some other instructions, and I think using this next thing, so I'm telling it to build me a self-contained web page, basically, that will give me 3 different mock-ups based on my instructions that I can come choose from. And what that's going to let me do is approve before it actually goes and jumps in and builds all the C++ and actual tuner code, so that I can refine it a couple times before I give it the go-ahead. And I've done this a few different times, and I've found that doing mock-ups is a great way to get a better result in the end. Now, if you have a design that you want to draw out by hand, or use something like Figma to design a nice user interface and a nice tuner or a standby screen, by all means, that will also result in a really good ending result and a really good working tuner. So if that's more what you're familiar with, I say go for it. So we're going to let this run, and it'll take a few minutes. And here in a second, I'm going to fast forward, and let's look at what it looks like in the mock-ups. And actually, while it's building, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the cool things that Qtune has. So if we go back over to Qtune here, let's just take a look at some of the features. So right now I'm actually in monitored bypass mode, which means use the tuner even on standby mode. To get into settings, you can either press and hold the foot switch, or you can use the tap on the Q button, and that will bring you into settings. So here's a couple of the other styles. The gauge is included in the SDK. Let me turn on my guitar signal here. You'll see that's what that one looks like. There's another one here. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Not Stompbox. Well, let's go take a look, and we'll just look in the SDK. Well, actually, it's now time to go look at the mock-up. So we'll come back to this, don't worry. So if we go take a look at the mock-ups here, it has finished, and it's already opened the browser for me, and it's created this web page where we can take a look, and look at this. We can even drag this around and get an idea. In fact, we can switch this to an E, switch it to a G, let's switch it over to a D. So we can do all that. Let's see what it looks like when it's perfectly in tune. I don't really like that bar disappearing on mockup A or on B. Wonder why it chose to do that. But these are the types of things that it will make up. And so probably none of these are exactly what I would want. But here's our chance to make a couple of little refinements. So I actually like mockup number C, or not number, letter C. Mockup C is what I like the best. But there are a couple things I don't love about it. This -50 and +50 cents. I don't really like that being on top of the meter there. And I don't really care about seeing the octave. Let's take a look at landscape. Make sure it looks good. That should work. Oh, and I really like how it is showing the Let's make a couple changes. So I like that those arrows are there, but if I'm flat, I want that left arrow to light up. And if I'm sharp, I want the right arrow to light up. And only when we are in tune, in range, do I want both to light up. I'm not exactly sure what that little green dot is at the top center, but we're going to ignore that. So let's jump back to our code here and say, this is really great. We don't have to say that, but I'm going to. I like mockup C, but there are a couple things that we should change. First, -50 and +50 are overlapping the meter. Move those, let's see, move those down a little bit. The left arrow should be lit up when the signal is flat, the right arrow when it's sharp, and only when we are in the in-tune range should they both be lit. Let's do something else. Well, I said let's take out the octave number indicator. When the tuning hits 0 cents, that means it's perfectly in the middle. Let's flash the arrows once. Okay, and then I actually want to see this. So before we build, so build 3 more web mockups with these changes, and I'll choose. So these mockups are actually quite a bit better than some that I've seen in the past. But you notice they were all similar, but little nuances that some of them weren't quite right. And while that's building, this should go a little bit faster. Oh, speaking of fast, the very first time that you go to build, it will download inside of Docker. It's going to download all of, it's called ESP-IDF. It's the framework for building the code that runs on the microcontroller that Qtune runs off of, which is an ESP32. And it's also downloading a thing called LVGL. It's the graphics library that Qtune uses. So that very first time that you make a build, it might be a little slow, but all the builds after that should go pretty quick. And of course, I've already done it, so that's why it didn't have to download that already. I don't know if we'll have time to take a quick look at some more of these screens, but let's take a look. I'll show you a couple of other things really quick that are helpful. When you're developing, there's this advanced menu, and if you don't have your guitar handy, you can click into the developer tools and turn on this test signal. And what that will do is it's going to basically send frequencies to your plugin so that you can get an idea of what it will look like. And this is really handy for when maybe you're sitting on the couch like I am and I don't have my guitar plugged into the tuner, but I still want to do some development. That's really handy. The other thing that's handy, you do have to turn this off too before it will start acting normal. So turn off the test signal, and let's go back and change our tuner bypass type from monitoring to just buffered bypass. Now the cool thing with this has a really nice buffer inside of it. So if you put this as your first pedal on your pedal board and turn on the buffer, it'll match the impedance really well, and you'll also have a good buffer. So I just switched over to standby mode. This is one of the new standby screens that's in the SDK. So let me turn my guitar up here. So with buffered bypass mode, you can actually read the frequencies as they come in on the standby screen, and you can do cool things like that. So be sure to experiment with that. All right, well, this new set of mock-ups is done, so let's pop back over there and take a look. So let's see if it actually did what I was wanting it to do. Okay, so it is flashing when it gets to 0. This is looking pretty good. I'm looking at let's see, C1, C2, and C3. I don't know which one. I'm not a huge fan of C3 with the triangle. I'm trying to look at the differences between C2. C2 is kind of cool. Let's take a look in landscape mode, and let's change the color, the accent color, to blue. Oh, that's cool. All right, well, there's not a whole bunch of difference between C1 and C2, so just for fun, let's do C2. So we're going to come back to Claude Code and say, I really like C2. Let's go ahead with the implementation. All right, and we are still in auto mode. So I'm going to hit that, and now it's going to switch from building mockups to actually building the C++ code that it's going to need to build the actual plugin. So while that's doing that, let's jump back over to Qtune and see if there's anything else that I can quickly show you before we go on. Of course, you can come into your main color. You can choose a different color. Let's choose blue. We'll come back, and now if I play a string, you'll see it's in blue. And of course, over here on the standby screen, it's also paying attention to blue as well. Let's take a look at, oh yeah, I know what I can show you. In the SDK, I wanted a way that you could save off state on about your tuner or your standby screen. And so I built a plugin, a standby screen, that demonstrates how you can do that. So if we come into standby screens and we go down to Jamagotchi, this is a standby screen that's a digital pet, and I made it so you can interact with it while it's on your pedal board and you just have your guitar. So it's saying it's 6, so if we play a C, and this isn't really a great game, but okay, now it's saying it's messy. And if you want to improve on this digital pet, go ahead and download the code and make it better. So let's play a D sharp. Tidy up, clear each spec. So I've got to play an E, an A, and a G. If I can remember how to play a G. There we go, nice. Continue. Now it's hungry. Play a B. Now it's asking me to play those different notes. The one at the top, I mean. So you can build in these fun little, oh, that's not a D sharp. What am I doing wrong here? D, I have to think, oh, C sharp. Well, you get the idea. But it can read frequencies, and you can build these cool little games. Or do whatever you want with them. I've kind of neglected the Jamagotchi for a while, so it's having me do all sorts of different little things. Okay, now it's sleeping. And it has character progressions, so as it gets older it will evolve. Right now it's a rookie. And we can take a look at its stats here. Oh wow, I've really neglected it. And there are probably some bugs that need to be fixed. So if you want to go help make that particular standby screen better, jump in the SDK and become a contributor. Submit your fixes as a pull request. All right, well, what else can we talk about in here? The in-tune range, the reference pitch. Oh yeah, here's something important. The rotation. Qtune can be rotated in any direction. It uses top jacks, which I really love. When we rotate left, it's talking about the foot switch being on the left, or right, the foot switch being on the right. So you'll see that here. I've got it taped down, so I'm not able to actually rotate it to show you, but you get the idea. Rotate right, we can put it upside down. So it's really versatile that way. Let's go back to the main screen. Oh, there's another cool thing. Let's switch to a different standby and do the maze runner. So when I first jumped into Claude Code, I was curious to see what I could do with Qtune, and the very first thing that I did, which I can't ship because I haven't licensed it and I'm not affiliated with this company, but there's a popular game, Pac-Man, that I asked it to build as a standby screen, just as an animation. And in less than 15 minutes, it had the whole thing implemented. It built the first time, compiled the first time, and it was running. But of course, I can't ship that. But if you want to go tell Claude Code to build you a Pac-Man standby screen or whatever else, experiment, and you'll be surprised what it can do. And as it makes mistakes or as it doesn't get things exactly right, go ahead and prompt it again and iterate. And you'll end up with iterating and refining what it's building, you'll end up with something really cool. So Claude is still working at making this tuner plugin, but while it's working, I wanted to point out a couple things. If we scroll up, you'll see that it's making changes to some code. It's making mistakes, and the nice thing is it's going to pick up on the mistakes and fix them. And I've added instructions and a validation tool. You can run manually, but Claude will also run it. That when it's all the way finished, it's going to run the finished plugin against the validation just to make sure that it's all good and ready to go. So it's getting near being done. One of the things I wanted to show you, let's bring up the Qtune again. If you look in the main folder of the SDK, there's a monitoring script. So if I run that, and this is how you do that on Mac OS, Monitor OS. On Windows, it would be this PowerShell script, monitor.ps1. If I run monitor, what that's going to do is it's going to detect what port you're plugged into, and it's going to start monitoring the output of Qtune. So if you wanted to debug some things, you could come in here and get an idea of what maybe your plugin is doing. And that's especially important if you run into problems where it starts up and maybe Qtune has a black screen. Well, run the monitor and then get it to start up, and you should see some output that then you can copy and paste all of this, put that output into Claude Code and say, hey, what's wrong? Can you fix it? And I've never seen it not be able to fix it. There's a quarantine mode where if your plugin fails more than a couple times under certain circumstances, it will rename it and it won't load intentionally. So it kind of recovers there. But to get out of this monitoring, you'll hit Control-C to stop that. I think it finished here, so let's take a look at this code. All right, it has built the dead center plugin. So this is how we go about installing it. You're going to unplug Qtune. You're going to hold down the foot switch and plug it back in. And it's using a USB-C cable plugged into my computer. What that does is it puts it into USB drive mode. I can come into the plugins directory, and this is all on the Qtune now. So if I come over to the Qtune SDK and go to plugins, tuner, and I'm going to select dead center, this new build directory should have our finished .so file. And I'm going to drag and drop this into the plugins directory on Qtune. And then I'm going to click to eject Qtune. And now it's ejected. If I power it off, so we'll plug it back in. We still got the maze runner going, but let's switch. First of all, let's go back into bypass monitoring mode so we can use it on this screen and in bypass mode. And there it is, dead center. So fingers crossed, let's hope this works the first time. Hey, there's our tuner. So let's go ahead and try this out and see if it works. Turn the volume up. So you notice that it's a tiny bit different than the mock-up. Those LED segments don't look exactly like what I remember seeing in the mock-up. In fact, I wonder if we still have that running. Yeah, maybe they're close-ish. Nope, they're a little bit different. So if I was building this for real, I would want to come in and change that. I just turned the wrong thing. So just as an experiment, let's try this. I am going to take a screenshot of this. Actually, let's switch back to portrait mode. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and let's go back to Claude Code. And this is what I'm talking about iterating. So I'm going to Control V to paste that screenshot in there. I'm going to say the LED note segments don't really look like the mock-up, the web page mock-up that we had. Fix that. Everything else is close-ish. Let's move the -50 and +50 cent labels down maybe 10 pixels, so they are not so close to the meter. Okay, so this is what iterating means. You know, you're going to grab something, test it out, make some adjustments, and it's going to go back and try it again. While it's doing that, there was something I was going to have us do. Oh yeah, that's right. So let's go change the display, rotate this left, and just check landscape mode. Make sure we don't see anything weird. Okay, well, I don't love the fact that the mute indicator is sitting right on top of the left arrow. So that would be another thing that I would want to iterate on. Let's check this other thing. So let's go to the attitude tuner. Notice when I see the bottom right there, 440, that's the indication of the pitch reference. And when we switch back to the dead center that we just built, we should see that. So let's pay attention if that shows up. Okay, so it's showing up right there in the middle. So that means that we could move the mute button to the bottom left. So if I were to do another iteration of this, that's something I would tell Claude Code to fix. Let's move this back to normal rotation. Yeah, see how bad that looks? But we'll go ahead and let this finish up. All right, so it has just finished up, and it's asking us to reinstall it and look at the bevel. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to unplug, hold the foot switch down, plug it back in. It'll go into USB drive mode again, and then we'll switch over to the Qtune plugins. We're going to come to the build directory where the dev center is, drag and drop it. This time we'll replace. And just like that, it's ready to eject. So we'll unplug this, plug it back in, and we'll be able to take a look at this. So did it do a better job? It's still a little bit strange. So you notice it didn't quite follow the mock-up exactly on that top little. Let's get that bar to go out of the way. Oh, and it looks like when I'm stopping to play, it's putting the needle right in the middle. So you could make the needle disappear, you could do all sorts of things. But hopefully you get the idea. And building one of these is extremely simple, especially if you got Claude Code or a different AI agent. So everything you need to build your own is built into the SDK, and it's all available right now. So I'm actually not going to include this new dead center example, but you should be able to recreate it or build one that's even better than this pretty easily. Well, I hope this was useful for any of you that want to jump in and build your own tuner or standby screens. I'm really excited to see what you guys can come up with, especially if anybody wants to go off and build a standby screen that pays attention to the frequency and either build some games or some other little training tools to help people learn the fretboard on their guitar, or just have a fun time. I would love to see some of those. If you're wanting some help building your own tuner or standby screen, then join our Discord channel. I'll put a link in the description. Or if you're more of the forum, web forum type, go to the forum on Pedal PCB and scroll near the bottom. There's a special Qtune section, and we hang out there quite a bit. So you can reach us either of those ways. But when you build something cool, let us know. Hashtag Qtune pedal. We'd love to see it. Thanks to everyone who's already purchased a Qtune kit. We really appreciate your support, and we've had a lot of fun bringing cool tuners to you, and it's fun to see and get feedback from you. A lot of people really love this, and we're excited to see how far you guys can push it. As always, stay tuned.